There you go. I'm going to say that again. Good evening and welcome to Lean Live Bites Live. This is the third edition of the series. I had a great show on Monday. Thank you very, very much for Shirley and Janet for their participation in the show. It was absolutely fantastic. Got some really, really great feedback from them, from the people who watched the show. We'll be back again this coming Monday, and we're having a great topic, and I'll tell you all about that topic a bit later on in the show. But this show, Lean Bites Live, is all about the lean mind body method. The method that made me lose 50 pounds off my body. Imagine that in 6 months. Cure my sleep apnea and reverse my pre-diabetes at the age of over 50. Look, I'm going to show you. This is what I look like. Wow, that's the transformation. And what I'm going to share with you today helped that transformation. So pay close attention. Now, look, we all want to lose weight. And whenever we want to lose weight, the question we always ask is, how do I lose weight? You know, I was in the gym today. I was speaking to someone who was in the gym for the first time. And they came up to me and said, well, what exercises do I have to do to lose weight? And I just pointed out a few exercises. I didn't go into any kind of detail about the way I feel about exercise and weight loss, because I don't feel that weight loss is really achieved through going to the gym. But my point is, it's the first port of call. When people want to lose weight, they think, well, I have to go to the gym. Well, I think the question we should be asking ourselves is not what we need to do to lose weight. I think the first question we should be asking ourselves is, exactly why do we get fat? Why do we put on this weight? I think that's the real question we have to ask ourselves. And when we find that answer, the real answer, I think our efforts to lose weight will be more effective. And this is the journey that I went through. I asked myself a different question. Instead of, how can I lose weight? I thought, let me understand firstly how I put on weight. Now, I know there are so many theories out there about eating too much, which is all about gluttony, and not going to the gym and exercise, which is all about sloth. Those two schools of thought blame the individual. Well, how about this? Suppose you putting on weight was not your fault. It wasn't about you being lazy, or it wasn't about you eating too much. Suppose it wasn't about the size of your plate or a calorie issue. Suppose it was a hormonal issue, possibly a genetic issue that you don't have much control of. How many people, when they reach to 45, 50, they notice that they start putting on weight? So they're putting on weight. And you ask them the question, are they eating any more than what they used to eat? Ask yourself that question. Are you eating any more than what you used to eat when you were 30, when you were really slim? I guess the answer to a lot of people is no. So why is it that the same amount of food you were eating when you were 30 is making you put on weight now when you're 50? As far as you're concerned, you're not eating loads of food. It has to be something more than just calories in, calories out. And through my experience and the research of the peers I mix with, that theory has been debunked so many times, even though calories do count. So this evening, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the real reason, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many experts who I mix with, why we get fat. So then you can make an informed choice about what you want to do with your life. We're not going to go into great detail, but I'm just going to give you an overview of why we get fat. And then have a little conversation about what you can do about it. Is that fair enough? Okay, stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to talk about the science of how your brain is, the science of how food affects your body and your brain. All right. Let me firstly go into something called macronutrients. Macronutrients are things that substances that are used to fuel your body. There are three known macronutrients. There are protein, fats, and carbohydrates. There are actually four macronutrients. Alcohol is actually a fourth macronutrient, but it's not commonly spoke about. So let's talk about protein. In protein, these are things that are used to build your bodies, and your body can't produce amino acids. All right, so essential amino acids. So you need protein because your body can't produce it. And then we move on to fats. Yeah, you need fats for fatty acids. Again, your body cannot produce that. So protein gives you amino acids, fats give you fatty acids. And then we move on to carbohydrates. So what do carbohydrates give you? It gives you energy. But are carbohydrates essential to your body? Can your body live without carbohydrates? Absolutely. Essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. But there is no essential need for your body to be able to have carbohydrates. I know that's a surprise to some people, but this is an absolute fact. Your body has no essential need to ingest carbohydrates. I know that brings up a few questions in a few people, but I'll answer some of those questions as we go along in this presentation. Now, I'm going to explain to you the process of what happens and why we put on weight. So, we're hungry, we start to think about food. When we start to think about food, what happens? Our bodies start to secrete insulin in our pancreas secretes insulin. A pancreas is part of our body. So, and that's even before we've started to eat any food. Just by thinking about food, our bodies secrete insulin. There's like a two-phase insulin response. What then happens, right? We eat food, invariably carbohydrate rich food or drink food, which is filled with carbohydrates. All right. What happens next is enzymes in our mouth break the carbohydrates down into forms of sugar, two forms of sugar. One is glucose and one is fructose. They both have different effects on our body. Fructose affects our body differently from the way glucose. Specifically in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about what happens when we ingest glucose, because fructose goes straight to the liver, but glucose is metabolized in the body. So what happens? We eat the carbohydrates, and that is broken down into a form of sugar. Remember, you eat rice, it turns into sugar in your body. All right. And then what happens is your blood sugar rises because you're ingesting glucose, a form of sugar. So your blood sugar rises. Blood sugar, glucose in your blood is toxic. So now your body wants to remove that glucose from your body. So what then happens? That's the job of insulin. So your body secretes even more insulin. Now you've ingested the carbohydrates. All right. What happens next is your blood sugar then goes back down because that's insulin's job to control the blood sugar levels inside your body. So you're eating the carbohydrates, turn to glucose, insulin kicked in, started to remove the glucose out of your bloodstream, and your blood sugar level goes down. All right. What then happens, right? Insulin starts to transport the glucose to your cells, your muscles, and your liver. But the thing is, right, your body can only store a certain amount of glucose. Your liver, your muscles can only store a certain amount of glucose. So what happens to the excess glucose that's inside your body? Well, this is what happens. It gets stored as body fat. That is the simple process I'm going through. You ingest carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises, insulin comes in, starts to move the glucose to different parts of your body, but there is still going to be an excess. And then what happens is the excess of glucose is stored as body fat. And this is why insulin, if you Google it, is known as the fat storage hormone, because that's what it is. That is one of the roles of insulin, is to store fat. Now, this is why carbohydrate rich foods make you fat. When you eat carbohydrate rich foods, refined carbohydrates, they make you fat simply because they raise your blood sugar and bring insulin into play. And I remember when I qualified as a health coach, one of the things, even though the methodology I learned as a health coach was not the one I'm teaching you here, the one thing they did talk about was stable insulin levels. I said, whatever you need to do, you need to keep your insulin levels stable. And this is what the diet that I am on does. It keeps my insulin levels stable because I eat low carb foods, foods with a low amount of carbohydrates, foods without sugar, foods that do not raise my blood sugar. So in essence, insulin doesn't have to come into play. And there are other things that happen in the process, but this is just giving you a broad outline of what happens when you eat carbohydrate foods. Now, this is avoiding the blood sugar rise. This is what you want to do. Avoid blood sugar rise. Eat foods that do not raise your blood sugar. Doesn't raise your blood sugar, insulin doesn't come in, insulin is not going to store that blood glucose as fat. So you have no fat storage. And guess what? Insulin not only stores fat, it inhibits your body from using fat as energy. So this is why when you eat lots of carbohydrates and your insulin level rises, your body doesn't use its fat storage as energy. It uses glucose as energy. And this is why many people can't get rid of the fat that's on their body. But my diet allows my body to have a stable insulin level so I can use fat as energy. I'm going to talk about that in a moment because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hold on a minute, where am I going to get my energy from? That's what you're thinking because you have been brought up with the same narrative that I have been brought up with, that carbohydrates are the only source of energy. Yes, they are the easiest form of energy, but they are not the best, or they're not necessarily the preferred form of energy for your body. I don't know if you know, look, your body in any one time can store about 2,000 calories of energy. That's from carbohydrates. So you eat you carb loads, as some people talk about it, and your body can store about 2,000 calories of energy. That'll go in no time, and this is why runners who do carb loading, they eat loads of carbs, and throughout their run they have to do some more carb loading. But let's compare that 2,000. Would you prefer 2,000 calories or 40,000 calories you can gain from fat? That's how much energy your body can store when you're using your fat for fuel. And this is what I do. This is why I go to the gym in a fasted state every single day. I don't eat anything. I go to the gym. I go to the gym and I don't have to eat. In fact, I don't eat till say 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I may not have eaten 9 o'clock the day before, but my body still has all that energy from fat. This is the great thing about being on a low carb diet because your body's now not running on glucose. It's running on fat, and you'll find that you'll have so much more lasting energy. You won't have that high or low that people get. You know, you eat a carb meal and you want to sleep. I used to wonder, why is it, you know, elders when I was young used to eat food or soup or a dumpling and then the big meal and then they'd be sleeping half an hour later. You know, I do corporate training, and sometimes you see people come back from lunch and they're tired and they're kind of nodding off. That's because their blood sugar has risen because they've had a real high carb lunch, and then it's dropped. Yes, and it's become hypo and it's dropped, and then their body's got to kick it back in to bring it up again. That's called the carb crisis. That's another benefit of eating low carb, reduced sugar, and refined carbohydrate food. So I just want to share with you basically the real reason why you get fat. It's not your fault. It's potentially not your fault. Just think about this. People eat more not because they people eat people say, look, if you eat loads you get fat. Well, the theory I'm presenting to you today is that people possibly eat loads because they're getting fat. So the eating is a symptom of them putting on weight. So if you're putting on weight due to hormonal issues, that's not because you're being greedy. But if you put on more weight, and you're going to eat more. We all have children. How many children, boys especially, think, well, you know, they're coming through their puberty, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you see their voracious appetite and they're eating loads of food. Would you say they are growing because they're eating food? Or would you say they're eating food because more food because they're growing? I'd say they're eating more food because they're growing. So the excess food intake is a symptom of their growth. And that could be the same for you, especially when you think about when you were younger, you had the same food and now you eat the same food. And this is true because, you know, hormones like testosterone and estrogen in women affect the way your body ingests carbohydrates. And also when women reach menopause, again, that can affect the way your body is affected by carbohydrates. But we're told simply go to the gym, exercise more, eat a lot less. It doesn't work. And if it did work, we wouldn't have an obesity crisis that we have at the moment. Let's be frank. We wouldn't have an obesity. I mean, the diabetes crisis is another thing, and I'll talk about that another time. But if it did work, we wouldn't have the obesity crisis around the world that we have now. It's an outdated narrative that is driven by commercial interests. This is what I believe and my peers believe. It's an outdated narrative that is driven by commercial interests. You can take control of your weight. I have people have who have coached, who have lost weight and never once stepped in a gym. Now, you know me, I love the gym. I was there this morning. I love the gym. But you do not need to exercise to lose weight. But you need to eat right. It doesn't matter how hard you exercise, if you eat the wrong foods, it will be completely ineffective. I just want you to possibly open your minds to a different way of looking at eating. You know, as I say to my clients as well, don't fear fat. You know, I'm going to do an episode here which I'm going to break it down to you and explain to you why you shouldn't fear fat. There are certain fats you should fear, like the vegetable oil and the polyunsaturated fats. But good fats you get in avocados and many other things, you shouldn't fear them. They're essential for your body and essential for the production of certain hormones inside your body. And again, I'll go through that. I'll do a little L.E.A.N Bites Live about the fat so you can understand that. But today, I just wanted to share with you the real reason why I and many people believe we get fat and put on weight. And it's proved well for me because using the methodology that I've just spoken to you about, I lost over 50 pounds in 6 months. I was well over the age of 50. Well, not well, a little bit. Yeah, well, enough over it to sometimes think, I'm a bit old. I should be settling with my weight. And that's why even last week I spoke about visceral fat and the importance of reducing our stomach because the visceral fat suffocates your organs. So that was the segment today about, yeah, about the real reason why we get fat and why we need to possibly change the question we ask ourselves, and that is, why do I put on weight? So I hope you found this useful. I hope it, go and do your own research. It sets you on your own journey to be able to discover a new way and finally break that cycle that you might have been on, that frustrating cycle, because I know how frustrating it can be. And 2021 could be a year where you look the best you've ever looked. Absolutely. So we're going to move on to the next section. And this is a section I brought in last week. And this section is called Sugar Smash because often we don't realize the amount of sugar that is in our foods. So there's going to be 3 foods, and I'm just going to wait a few seconds, and I'm going to say, well, you can try and guess the amount of sugar content. Now, I know some people can make a comment, so I'm going to put the comments up here. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, there is an ability to post a comment as long as it works. Technology works. So if I'll wait a few seconds, if someone wants to try and guess, then yeah, let's see if you can get that right. So let's see what the first food. And today I've gone Caribbean. I've gone exotic today for the 3 foods. So the first food is, well, before I show what the first food is, let me just reiterate that everything we eat turns to, well, every carbohydrate we eat, the banana, the coke, the bread, the rice, the pasta, they're all different forms of sugar. Remember, I said that in the presentation. All right. What I also want to remind you of is the government guidelines, because this is important when we look at the amount of sugar in food. These are the UK government guidelines and the amount of daily intake of sugar we should have. All right. So a man should have 9 teaspoons of sugar. That's about 36 grams. And a woman should have 6 teaspoons of sugar. That's about 25 grams. Now, each teaspoon of sugar works out to be about 4 grams, 4.2, 4.3, depending on where you're getting your feed from. All right. So remember that each teaspoon of sugar works out to about 4.2, 4.3. So a man is supposed to have no more than 9 teaspoons of sugar, and a woman 6 teaspoons. Now it talks about added teaspoons of sugar, but there is so much sugar in the food that we're unaware of. So what's the first food? This is the first one. Now this is some fried dumpling. Who loves fried dumpling? Fried dumpling is, well, I used to love fried dumpling. This is 230 grams worth of fried dumplings. These are reasonably large dumplings, but it's a meal that people eat very often. So how many teaspoons of sugar or how many grams of sugar do you think is in these 2 dumplings here? I'll just wait a couple of seconds. Let me show you how much sugar is inside these dumplings. I'm going to smash it. We're going to do some smashing here to see how much sugar is inside the dumpling. And wow, look at that. 90 grams of sugar, 22.5 teaspoons. That is huge. Now look, take consideration, you're only supposed to have about 9 for a man and 6 for a woman. 2 of those, some people would say lovely fried dumpling that they want to have with, jerk chicken, or they have with anything, is 90 grams of sugar. So you can understand Well, Brian, well, that's great. Thank you very much. Well, Brian here just mentioned 18 grams. Well, whew, you was slightly a little bit out. I know it's surprising that it's 90 grams, but it's a lot. So next time you're eating two dumplings, realize how much sugar, because that's just pure flour. And some people even add sugar to their dumplings. They call it sugar dumplings. Wow! So imagine just that one plate, how much sugar is inside there, and how much that's going to raise your blood sugar, how much that's going to bring insulin into play. All right, so that's the first meal. Let's look at the next one. The next one is 200 grams of rice and peas. You know, everybody loves rice and peas. Everybody makes it different. Everybody feels their rice and peas are the best. It's not something I make now, but hey, I can still appreciate it. So look, we have 200 grams of rice and peas. How much sugar? How many teaspoons of sugar? How many grams or how many teaspoons in this? I mean, people eat this amount. It's a full plate, but people do eat this kind of amount of sugar, of rice and peas, I should say, in a meal, sometimes more. So, how many grams of sugar would you say? How many teaspoons? You can either guess in teaspoons or in grams. And this is something that people have regular on a Sunday afternoon. Please, I love my Caribbean food. But I just want to point out so you're aware of what's happening. All right. So let's see. Let's sugar smash it and see how much is inside there. Wow. Oh, 20 grams. I mean, that plate of rice and peas was 20 grams of sugar. That's 5 teaspoons. Just that one plate. Now remember, people sometimes have the rice and peas and they have the two dumpling on the side. So you can imagine when you're combining all that, how much actual sugar you're eating when it goes into your body, how much glucose is being produced in your body. Your body can only store a certain amount of glucose, and then the rest gets turned into fat. Just so you're aware. I'm just making you aware. I'm not saying it's not delicious, but I believe we need to eat from an informed position and understand that whatever we're putting in the mouth, at least we understand how it's affecting our body. And I hope after the presentation today, some of you will be a little bit more aware. So this is the last one. This is one of my favorites here. Ackee and saltfish. Come on, ackee and saltfish. How many grams of sugar in this plate of ackee and saltfish? 160 grams, which is a nice amount. And we'll look at the teaspoons. So how many would you say in this bowl of ackee and saltfish? Let me see where everyone's going to go. If anyone's willing to come and step out here and, yeah, come on, ackee and saltfish, 160 grams. You know, normally people would have this with some banana and or some dumpling on the side, or even a fried dumpling. But we're just talking about the ackee and saltfish by itself, and we're going to see how many grams of carbs. Okay, let's see how many grams of carbs. Let's sugar smash it here in this ackee and saltfish, and there is 5 grams. Wow, that's wonderful. And that is wonderful. This is why I love ackee and saltfish. It's a beautiful low carb meal. A beautiful low carb meal. It's only 5 grams of carbs, 1 teaspoon of sugar there. So ackee and saltfish is great to be able to eat. All I would say is if you're cooking it, don't use vegetable oil. Don't use the polyunsaturated oils. I will explain to you in another session why you should not use those double bonded oils and what happens to them. Don't use it. Do not use the corn oil. Do not use the vegetable oil. Do not use any seed oil. They are very, very, very bad for you. But we'll leave that for another time. So ackee and saltfish is a great choice, and I love it, and I make it often. But hey, watch this. Remember we spoke about the rice and peas being 20 grams. This is something I eat often, which is cauliflower rice. And you can replace rice for cauliflower rice. You can even make cauliflower rice and peas. There's a one certain brand of peas which are very, very low in carb. I've checked everywhere, but it still comes back low. So I use that brand. So let's compare the 20 grams of rice and peas to a bowl, equivalent bowl of cauliflower rice, and let's see how many grams is in there. 5 grams. Wow, that's beautiful. So we could have the akin saltfish with the cauliflower rice, and it would still only be 10 grams of carbs, and that's a big meal. So this is why I speak a lot about cauliflower rice, because it really tastes delicious if you make it right. And I've got some videos on my YouTube channel of exactly how to make cauliflower rice. You can go there and search. It's under Lean Lifestyle Kitchen, and it will show you how to make the cauliflower grains. And then there's another video that will show you how to actually cook it. And if you belong to my tribe community, there'll also be a video about how to cook cauliflower rice and peas. So this is a great alternative to rice, which is cauliflower rice. So I hope you've seen here the difference what it can make when you just change what you eat, change the food you eat. It's just making that transition, you know. And I will say, I over the course of my diet, I've never eaten a boring meal, and I'm being honest with you. I've never actually eaten a boring meal. I enjoy every single one of the meals I eat. And I think that's really, really important when it comes to you losing weight, because if you're eating boring meals, then it's easier to fall off. And for me, I love Caribbean meals, and I've got so many Caribbean recipes in my tribe community, low carb or a lot lower carb Caribbean recipes that you can enjoy. So we've gone through the first section, which is about, why we get fat, and we've gone through the sugar smash. We'll do 3 other foods next week. Let's move on to the final section here today. And the final section is what I call a lean reflection. And it's just really just a reflection point to end with. I spoke just a minute ago about changing your diet. And a lot of people really say, well, I can't be bothered. I can't do this. I can't do that. For me, I think it's a question of values. I think it's a question, as I spoke about in one of the podcasts on a Monday, it's a question about your why. You just don't think it's important enough. That's why you're not willing to change your diet. That's why you're not willing to do something. You just don't think it's important enough. Maybe all of people around you may be slightly a little bit overweight. Maybe you may be a bit overweight, but not as overweight as everybody else you see. Maybe you think those lifestyle illnesses will never happen to you. The unfortunate thing is, there are so many people who only got the wake up call when they're in front of their doctor. And all too often we've heard of that wake up call being 6 months, a year, 2 years. Because a lifestyle illness that could have been avoided, that you just couldn't be bothered. You just didn't think it was important enough. I'm going to give you a little parable, a little story. Imagine there's a tower. Tower is 50 feet long, 50 feet high. And there's another tower 50 feet apart. That's also 50 feet high in the air. So you have 2 towers, 50 feet high, 50 feet apart. Underneath the tower is some water filled with crocodiles. And connecting the 2 towers is a rope. Just a thin rope, but a rope nevertheless. You are on one side of the tower at the top, and on the other side of the tower is £1 million or $1 million if you're watching this in America. Now, it's just a thin rope. You've got crocodiles underneath that haven't eaten for a while. I mean, they're not on low carb, they're just eat anything that comes their way. And if you drop, it's certain death. How many of you would travel from one side of that tower you are to the other side, 50 feet, to claim that $1 million? Well, I put it to you, not many of you. Because it's not worth the risk, is it? 50 feet, rope, two crocodiles, they're not on low carb, they haven't eaten for a while, they're looking at you, there's food. You're going to think, no, that's not for me, I'm not going to do that. But let me give you another scenario. The towers are in the same position. But the towers are not 50 feet high, they're 100 feet high, each tower. And the tower is not 50 feet apart, it's 100 feet apart. We have the rope connecting the two towers still. They invited a friend, so there's 3 crocodiles below. So now you know there's no way you're getting out. And guess what? The rope started to smolder because someone's set it on fire. It's not totally on fire, but we know it's going to be on fire soon, so it's going to be even weaker if you don't cross quickly. You're on one end of the tower, but on the other end of the tower, where there was $1 million, there is no longer $1 million. On the other end of the tower is now your child, your son, your daughter, and you're the parent. How many of you would at least attempt to cross that rope to get to the other end of the tower to save your child? I'm putting my hands up because I definitely would. You see, the difference is what was on the other end was more important to me. What was on the other end of the tower originally was $1 million, and that wasn't worth the risk. But now my child, that's now important to me. My why now is increased. My why now has got emotional. My why now is now a must, not I'm going to think about it. This is the way you should look at your life and things you do, and especially your health. When your why is big enough, you will do it. Take the analogy of the tower. Your child being on the other side increased your why dramatically. In fact, it's, as I say, it's one of them whys which make you cry. So if you're listening in today, and as some of you have said, I love my rice and peas, I love my dumplings, great, it's fantastic, and then you make a choice. No one can't tell you what to put in your mouth. Yeah? All I'm saying to you is don't allow your why to get to a critical state. Create a why now to allow you to be able to set in motion the small steps to be able to change your life. So that's the thought. That is the reflection today. Yeah? Create yourself a why. Understand you do things which you value most. Value your health. Because you're no good to nobody when you're sick. And obesity makes you sick. And my life has improved exponentially through my journey of losing weight. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm so passionate about sharing it. So that is the message for today. I just want to tell you about the Make Health Your Habit podcast, which is happening on Monday. We are going to be dealing with an incredibly serious issue. It's a real serious issue we're going to be dealing with, and that is depression. We're going to have an expert on Monday talking about depression. We're still working out the order, but hopefully we'll have some people talking about their experiences. I mean, in the lockdown, anxiety and depression has increased exponentially. So it's a very serious subject, and it's something that affects people's health dramatically. So tune in next week, Monday, for Make Health Your Habit podcast live. The topic is going to be depression. You can go to my website. You can see the address on screen, www.theleanmindbodymethod.com. You can find out more details. You can go there and you can register for our mailing list, and you'll be updated about everything we do. We have so much planned in the future. And if you go to www.theleanmindbodycoach.com, and you go there, you can also sign up for our mailing list. And guess what? I spoke about low carb foods. You will get a 5-day meal plan with a dessert with my special jerk sauce. Yeah, my special jerk sauce recipe. I'm giving it. I'm being very generous. You go to www.theleanmindbodycoach.com, sign up for the mailing list, and you will receive in your inbox a 5-day shopping list. 5-day recipe, low carb recipes, detailed recipes, full shopping list. Oh, telling you what to do with leftovers. I mean, it's an absolutely awesome giveaway. And there's a dessert recipe there as well. So go to the website, register on the website, and you will be kept updated about everything that I do. And the team here is growing that we're doing. We have our tribe community. I've closed down the tribe community for a couple of weeks. I'm making some adjustments in the background so that we're not accepting any members for tribe at the moment. But if you register on the mailing list, you will be informed when we open up that mailing list again in the future. We're making some adjustments in the back end and some few surprises for you. So in about 10 days time, we'll open it back up to build that tribe community. So I hope you're found today useful, talking about why we get fat and what you can do about it. Hope you found the sugar smash section enlightening, whereby you learned a little bit about the foods that you've been eating and how much sugar is in those foods. And again, I hope you found the lean reflection stimulating and motivating, because that's what it's about. So I'll be back here next week, same time, 7 o'clock, sharing another, possibly about, in fact, I'm going to be talking about sleep next week. And you'd be amazed how sleep affects weight loss, how it affects everything in your body. So next week, I'll be talking about sleep and how improving your sleep can not only help with your weight loss, but improve overall your well-being. But for now, what I'd like to say is make health your habit, because what better habit can you have than making health your habit? Hopefully I'll see you all on Monday. But if not, I'll see you back here, same time, 7 o'clock on the L.E.A.N Bites Live. You enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you very much for taking the time to join me this evening. Good night, and I will speak to you soon.